We've got the receipts that show that the Trump administration and Department of Justice has been lying to federal judges about their removing people to El Salvador and dumping them off in that torture prison of Sikot. They've been lying to the American people and lying to federal judges like Judge Boasberg and Judge Zinnes about the level of control exerted by the U.S. government over that prison the entire time. When they looked Judge Zinnes in the eye in the Abrego Garcia case and said, "We can't get him back, Your Honor. That's in another country. They have sovereignty. They are independent. They have to make their decision." We know that's a lie. From what El Salvador told the United Nations a month or so ago about the operation of that prison, that it's in the complete control of the United States. So we knew that was a lie from the UN report. But now we've got the latest receipt. And then when they looked at Boasberg and told him the 200 people in the middle of the night without due process sent to El Salvador, including the one named Abrego Garcia, oh, we can't get them back. They're in a sovereign, we have no control over that prison. And now we've got, through Democracy Forward, a group that's allied here with Legal AF. You can go on the Democracy Forward playlist. We have a document, which is the terms and conditions of the money that was paid by the United States to El Salvador, almost $6 million. And you think in there may be a requirement, maybe the people aren't tortured, or that the Geneva Convention is not violated about how human beings are treated in captivity when they are incarcerated or detained. No, there's no reference to that. You want to know what the document says as a condition of them accepting the money in El Salvador to take these other human beings and mistreat them and torture them? No reference to, hey, by the way, don't torture, don't waterboard. No. You know what's on the Trump administration's mind? Abortion. And cutting off the ability for people through due process to get counseling from lawyers. Cut off the lawyers. Don't do abortion counseling. I cover it all right here on Legal AF on Michael Popok. Take a moment and hit the free subscribe button. Democracy Forward, I just had Sky Perryman on a week or so ago, has filed 100 lawsuits against the Trump administration. The Atlantic magazine called them the #1 source of trouble against the Trump administration right now, because they're also winning 93% of the time in front of these courts. And this resulted from one of their lawsuits in which they sought to get from a Trump administration and a Department of Justice that refused to turn it over until they got a court ordered, all the terms and conditions of the contract between El Salvador and the United States about the money and who's in control over there. Because that matters, because it also goes back to potential contempt proceedings against the Trump administration and the Department of Justice. That's what I would do if I was Judge Zinnes. That's what I would do if I was Judge Boasberg. I would use this document that I'm going to post up on Legal AF Substack and have an evidentiary hearing and an order to show cause hearing as to why they haven't been lied to about the level of control. Now, let me read to you from the terms and conditions. Usually boring stuff, but not here. No, and I will tell you in advance, there's no reference to don't torture at all. There's no reference to how they should be humanely treated while they're in custody. Instead, this is what's on the mind of MAGA and Trump. That the funds, they have to agree in advance as a condition of getting the $6 million or so from the government of the United States. El Salvador has to agree that none of the funds will be made available for legal counseling about the U.S. asylum process or a referral to lawyers in the United States. This is how depraved the funding is. Put human beings in incarceration and then cut off their ability to communicate with lawyers or lawyers to find them. Secondly, so they don't want them trying for asylum. They don't want them getting lawyers at all. This cuts off the ability for them to get lawyers. And they also don't want any money being spent to mobilize people to encourage them to come to the United States through the southwest border. So the border with Mexico, the southern border, they don't want any mass caravans being set up with funding that they're providing for immigration. Again, no reference to torture. And then we got the abortion one. Who is writing these things? That El Salvador has to agree in advance that none of the money will be used related to abortion. Why don't they worry less about abortion and a woman's right to choose in El Salvador and worry more about how human beings who are already born are being tortured in the jails of El Salvador? That's a fact. Abrego Garcia's lawyers brought to the attention of the federal judges and filings that he was tortured upon arrival, along with all the others. And that was not refuted by this president of the United States. I'm sure it was celebrated in the White House. The guy that creates the Department of War changes the name of the Defense Department, which I don't think he can do, by the way. I think Congress has to do that. But leave that as it may. Sure, this is the guy that's also going to be not worried and celebrating and high-fiving over the torture that these people are suffering in a prison in El Salvador that the United States controls. So, and then, of course, what else? You're throwing people into the dark, dank torture chamber of El Salvador, but we got to have a reference to diversity, equity, and inclusion, don't we? We're talking about Donald Trump. So buried in Section 5 of the terms and conditions, again, I'm posting this on Legal AF Substack for you to read today, is a provision that says that the money will not be used to operate any program promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion that violate federal anti-discrimination laws. So now they're worried about DEI in El Salvador? It just shows you how the brain of the Trump administration is just rotting in plain sight. They're just out of gas. Intellectually, morally, legally, they're just out of gas. But I'm glad that Democracy Forward was able to obtain this as these funds were being transferred to the government of El Salvador through JP Morgan Chase. For those that are Chase bankers, I am at present, although I'm having questions about whether I want to do that any longer. The U.S. intermediary bank was JP Morgan to the Central Reserve Bank of El Salvador. And the final bank was the General Directorate of the Treasury. So that's how the money got there. But again, if I'm Judge Zinnes and Judge Boasberg, I enter order to show cause as to why this, combined with the United Nations report from 2 months ago, doesn't demonstrate that they've been lied to in court by the Department of Justice about the control of this CCOT prison in El Salvador. Now, the other good thing about 400 cases against the Trump administration, including about the Alien Enemies Act, which he just recently lost in the Fifth Circuit, is that Donald Trump, have you noticed, he hasn't sent people to El Salvador lately. Some other third countries, but not El Salvador. And so we have cut him off at the pass from using the El Salvadoran prison any longer. I mean, they were talking about building, dozens of more facilities to take in people. Now Donald Trump is housing them at ICE is building, along with Florida, places like in the Florida Everglades, Alligator, Alcatraz, or in Indianapolis, or in other places, in Chicago. But they're not sending them out of the country as much as they used to. And I think this, if we continue with order to show cause to show why they shouldn't be found in contempt, I think this will further promote justice. I'm glad the Democracy Forward is with us here on Legal AF. Check out their playlist. Just look for Democracy Forward. You'll see all my interviews with Sky Perryman about all their cases that are going on right now. They are the good trouble that we need. The Atlantic magazine says they are the most troublesome. They provide the most trouble to the Trump administration of any other legal entity. I mean, the front lines of the resistance against Trump are in the courts. And this is where we get information like this that we could report on. Till my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Take a minute and hit the free subscribe button. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.